So I'm going to be talking about another option for recording remote interviews today, which is Squadcast, which is one of the ones listed in our guidance, which I've experimented with a bit. But I also wanted to put a note there saying thanks to Kids, who are doing an oral history project about wheelchair access at the moment, who have been using this a lot and gave me quite a lot of good tips and an audio file, as you'll hear later on. So what is Squadcast? Well, there's the website where you can sign up for an account. It's basically primarily a podcasting software, which is where quite a few of these bits of equipment come from. And it's something where you can do a video call, so you can see each other just like a Zoom call, but you can only export the audio. So you can't export the video, which shouldn't be a problem for 90% of any of the projects we're working on. What it can export for you is a 44.1 16-bit WAV file that crucially is uncompressed audio. So that's as near as we're probably going to get from remote interviewing to the audio quality that we normally get with face-to-face interviews. And how does it get the uncompressed audio? Well, it does what is called a double-ender recording. So unlike something like Zoom, where one person's voice has to be compressed to go across the internet, so the file was made a lot smaller and the quality was worse. Squadcast records each person locally, so it's recording each of you from your own computer, then uploads it to a central cloud on the website where you can download them as separate WAV files, or within the website, you can mix those WAV files into one mono file. So just a couple things there. One, it does employ some form of cloud storage. It's only temporary because you can delete the files afterwards. And from what I can see, Squadcast doesn't claim any more rights or any more risky than other sort of these options. But I mean, if you are doing something very sensitive and confidential, you probably shouldn't be doing any kind of remote interview. But that's just something to be aware of. And then the final bit is that if you want a stereo option, you're going to have to download the WAV separately yourself and mix them in Wavelab, or any Audacity, any kind of editing software. But it can mix quite a good mono file, as we'll see in a bit. What do you need? The interviewer needs to set up an account, or the project manager, and I'll give you a bit of information on that in a second. Crucially, the interviewee does not need anything. They don't need to download a bit of software. They don't need to register anything. They just need to be sent a link by email that they click on, and then they can join the interview session. It's best to do it with Google Chrome. WizKids reported that there were some problems using other browsers. I don't know what they are, but heard that it works very well on Google Chrome. And headphones and external microphones are recommended for all participants. Now, there has been some trouble using some of our audio jack microphones, but they found that USB microphones work very well. The set they've been using is this one here, which is a microphone and headphone set. It's a kind of stand-up microphone, which you can put on a desk, which is probably easier for these kind of interviews. But it does come to 58 quid. So if you're buying one of those for the interview and one for the interviewee, you're already looking at over £100, which does get us to the big issue of Squadcast, the price. So that you can get a 7-day free trial to experiment with, which is how I did these, but you can also pay to have a membership. It's a bit cheaper if you pay for a whole year instead of a month, but not much. But what you see there is that even at the highest price band, where you're paying over £30 a month, you're only getting 12 hours of audio recording per month. So that might be all right if you just do a couple of interviews a month, but if you wanted to do more, it's going to be quite pricey, and you could get probably a custom one, but you're going to have to speak to them. So I think this is the big issue with Squadcast. But on the other hand, I think it records probably some of the best audio you can get from these type of methods. How do you do it? So once you've got your session, you can either schedule a session in advance, which you can see in the bottom corner there, which is really good. It sends an invite much like you would do for a Zoom call. You can send it up to 3 people and a notification, or you can just start a session at that exact time, again, like Zoom or Skype. So for these experiments, I just started a session, what they call the reusable session. There's me. You can set your name, you can set which microphones or headphones you're using. I didn't have an external microphone, so it's just as internal microphones, but here's where you could set an external one. You click join session and it looks like that. So again, you can see yourself. The video gets a bit squashed, but I think it's okay. And then you're live, you're not recording yet. And to invite someone, you just basically click on the little person icon at the bottom, get the guest link and email it to them, which is what I did yesterday. And then Cami joined me. So here's what it looks like when the other person joins the call. Again, this is probably visually similar to some things you're probably used to. There's a chat function. I quite like that it gives you a notification across the screen when you get a message. The green dots on the side tell you how good your audio is, how loud you are, which is quite useful. And then if you click on the three dots next to your name, it can tell you things like whether your internet's working okay or whether there's a bandwidth problem, which is also pretty useful. You can invite more people, you can use the chat, or you can press record. As soon as you press record on Squadcast, you start recording. And as you can see here, it's changed. So it says stop instead of record. You can do that as many times as you want. And after you've done it a couple times, you can see there that it's recording files. So I think what's really good here is that you don't have to wait till the end of the call. You can stop the recording, start again. And every time you stop, you're still talking to the person in the video call. You're just not recording the audio. You can download the files here from within the session. But what I would do first is end the session, say goodbye, and then go back to the main screen. So let's say you've done your call, maybe you've recorded in about, the time you need, not going over your limit. You go back and the reusable session bit will look like this. If you'd scheduled a session with a name, again, it will just have the name of the session with the audio files underneath it. You can see we did 2 quick recordings there. So the first one was 10 seconds, the second one 34 seconds. So again, here you can click on the 3 dots and download the WAV files or as an MP3. But if you see there's one there that says mix recordings, that's where you click, you select the ones you want, and it mixes it into a mono WAV file for you right there. So if you see there's Charlie 2 and Cami 2, which are both 34 seconds, and then mix, which is also 34 seconds. So that's a mixed mono file of those 2 tracks, which you can then download to your computer. So that's all quite simple, I think. You can then delete them from Squadcast, and you've got a file on your computer. So what does it sound like? So I'm going to play you 2 examples here of mixed mono files. This is how it looks in Wavelab. You can see it's a 16-bit 44 WAV file. And again, remember, this is uncompressed audio. So you could be recording a 16-bit 44 WAV file of a Zoom call, but one person is still going to be compressed. It just has to do that. Otherwise, the gap between you 2 speaking over the internet would be about 10 minutes for each person or something. The files would just be too big. So this is an example of my friend James when I spoke to him on Squadcast a month or 2 ago. And what's quite funny is that he's actually talking about one of the features of Squadcast. And this one had no external microphones, remember? This is telling me that you've got bad Wi-Fi network.
My Wi-Fi is not always that. Sometimes it does cut out a little bit, to be honest.
Because can you see there's like a 3-dot thing on your thing? And if you click on it, it says, what mic, good network and the time and everything.
Oh, yeah, mine says very bad network. How can it say that my network is very bad while I'm doing a video call? Like, if it was that bad, then I'll just be like, I don't know how they can say that about me.
So James wasn't very happy about what they were saying about his Wi-Fi, but I think it sounds okay for something without external microphones. This example from WizKids, however, is done using the USB microphone and headphone kit that I mentioned earlier. So again, both people have it, the interviewer and the interviewee. And this is just another 30-second clip.
So the first question I'm going to ask you is, can you describe some of the different wheelchairs you've used?
I can, yeah. So I was using wheelchairs since I was about 3 years old. And it was interesting because you couldn't get an NHS a power wheelchair until you were 5, but you could have one privately through charity or through private purchase.
So that's just a clip from an oral history interview they've been doing. These are much longer interviews. So that's a couple examples of what it sounds like mixed and mono file. I haven't got an example here of the 2 stereos mixed together, but I could show that after or in future. I've actually got one open in Wavelab. But here's just a few tips that we got to get those files. So if you're using external microphones, obviously you should both test them beforehand and run a test call to test your bandwidth. WizKids have found that sometimes if it's poor bandwidth with someone, just switch off the video bit of the call and just do it as an audio call, which you can still get the record the audio in the same way, you just can't see each other. Stop and record as many times as you need, something I mentioned earlier. I think this is a really good bit about it, that you can just pause it and stop the recording, start another one. You get an extra WAV file, that's fine. We archive interviews like that all the time, but it means you can take a break when you need to. There's a bit of a pause, so pause for what seems like longer than an in-person interview after the interviewee finishes talking. It's better to get a bit of silence and some distortion from crosstalk. And finally, the way they work it is with a project manager who runs the account, sends out the invitations, downloads the files, mixes it, sends out the MP3s. And I think if you are working in a project with funding for remote interviewing where you have a project manager who can run the process, this is like a really good option because it gives you that ability to sort of have a bit of overseeing and send things out to people. So that was Squadcast.